Yeah, this is quite a historic moment, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we're in a big phase of really what the company is all about. So yeah, exciting, crazy. There's a million balls in the air for obvious reasons, but but ultimately this is why we're here. Yeah, so we're going to have a single malt, our own single malt.
Yeah, do you know what? I think we're just like very excited by that. I mean,
I came in the conversation earlier on when you were talking to John Soden, and ultimately, you know, where the industry is at for all of us. I think these are hugely exciting times.
Yeah, no, most definitely, very exciting times. I think, you know what, when we're looking at distilleries like yourself, you know, you guys are at that point of you're breaking that barrier where you've had to rely on other sources of whiskey. Now we've got our own. You know what I mean? Now we've got, and is our whiskey coming from Connacht? Is it good enough to be presentable? Is it good enough to be out there, you know, amongst the established distilleries? And that this is the testing point, isn't it? We want to taste that. We want to see what it's all about. So, David, I mean, you're 100% aware of what we have in our boxes. So everyone that's got the tasting, you know, tasting boxes have the 6 spirits in it. We've got the 10-year-old Spade and Bushel. We've got the 12-year-old double barrel. We've got the 5-year-old, Amarone. And then we have a double distilled single malt, a triple distilled single malt, and the Masala 14-year-old, 45%. Yes.
Yeah,
but we have other stuff. Yes. We're very lucky to have other stuff in front of me.
Yeah,
I feel very, very privileged at this point in time, actually.
Well, yeah, and ultimately, you know, it is the culmination of, you know, for me, this journey started for me in 2013. So there's a, you know, that seems like a hell of a long time to kind of put into a project with, you know, a huge amount of passion and effort. So yeah, this 2020, despite all of the challenges and the car crash that it's been so far, it's still going to be a monumental year for us and you know, in our history. So we're excited by it.
Yeah, no, totally. And do you know what? I want to say something off the bat. First of all, the friend at hand. Okay, so I don't know if you're aware of the friend at hand. You probably will be. It's one of those places in Belfast, you know, which is now becoming quite iconic. It is the place that only sells Irish whiskey, and Willie Jack puts a hell of love and attention into it. But it was the first place I came across Spade and Bushel. So really? It's the first place I came across it. He had the 10-year-old cask strengths. The small bottles, the size bottles, and here we took them to the club. And I tell you what, there's a lot of people in here tonight from the whiskey club who will back me up on this. It scored highly. It always has. The 10-year-old Spade and Bushel cask strength has been a go-to whiskey. It is, and everyone knows how good it is. And that was my first, you know, coming across the branding. And then being at Dublin Live, you get the opportunity again to meet the staff. You get the chance to see what other whiskey you're bringing out. And again, I was very impressed with the range of, first of all, those ranges of single malts, and then obviously you moved into the blends also that we had. But then getting this phone call and getting this conversation, and I want to mention Ella by name quite specifically. I was humbled the fact that, first of all, you want to be involved in Belfast Whiskey Week because. You know, you weren't involved last year, you know, and during this period, particularly during this crisis that we have, that I wasn't expecting many brands to want to get involved. I was thinking, this will be very hard for me to even encourage anyone. But you know what? It was the opposite. People were contacting me, and when Ella contacted me and say, listen, hold on, not only do we want to be involved, but we want to talk about our new whiskey that we are, you know, making, that we want everyone to taste. I was just blown away by that. I was taken aback by that, and I was like, you know, because we've got a lot of brands who have exclusive whiskies and they're launching X, Y, and Z products throughout the festival. But to have someone releasing a brand new distilled whiskey from their own premises for the first time. Well, this is very exciting. So I genuinely do appreciate that this is the launch part of it, and that you're going to be, supplying our festival goers who bought into the pack the taste of that first whiskey at some point, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I genuinely do mean that.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. I suppose from our perspective, Lindsay and Ella went to Belfast. Was it last year or the year before? And literally, had a tremendous experience up there.
Yeah.
I suppose we've also good friends. Jarlath Watson, Eckingville. I think David Boyd Armstrong might be here from Radaman.
Yes.
Colm Egan is a great friend of mine also. Ultimately, I'm the chairman of the Irish Whiskey Association, but I was Colm's vice chair for 2 years. So we've great friends up in Belfast. Looking at a way in which these are challenging times for everybody, and to have a forum with which we can talk about this in a fashion with people that really respect their whiskies and want to learn and understand. And as I look through all the people there that are participating, people have followed the journey literally since our first distillation, which was, I think, the 1st of June in 2016. So it's a long journey, and we've made great friends along the way. So why not?
Yeah. Oh no. And listen, no, it is good. And you know what is exciting to me? You list off a list of really important names there. People who are important at the moment, specifically involved in the industry.
Yeah, like I see Serge just after making a comment there on our Amarone. People, and I see Marike is in there. So we've friends from near and far here that have been on the journey with us along the way. So it's just nice to share the moment.
Amarone is number 3. Can you please wait?
Oh, Serge is skipping ahead. We haven't even started any whiskey yet, and he's on the ball. But listen, Serge is. Do you know what? We have a lot of time for Serge, and Serge has been a great supporter of the festival. But I know for a fact that the chatter that we've had about Connacht and what's coming and what's expected has been really good. And when I first said to people in the festival to say, listen, we've got Connacht, and they want to launch this product, it's mind blowing. It really is mind blowing. You could have looked at any which way to do this, and I think that in this period, I'm really grateful that we're doing it through this platform, and it's good to have these honest discussions. And it will be good to do that. What way do you want to start the actual tasting? What way do you want to kick off? What do you want to drink first? Do you want to go in the order that it's in the box?
Yeah, let's stick with the box. And I suppose where we'll go, just to give a precursor to everybody, ultimately I was fortunate enough to secure some supply of aged whiskey back in 2016. And you'll have seen the evolution of, it started off with our first release was the 10-year-old cask strength. And ultimately we've had derivatives of that along the way as we've retained that inventory and done limited releases over the course of the last 4 years. So what have you got up first, Paul?
So we have the Spade and Bushel 10-year, 42.2%. So yeah, that's a great nose. Do you not have any, David?
I have it here. I don't have the box, so I don't have.
We're on Spade and Bushel number 10-year. I was going to think, I want you to drink with me. Because I mean, look, the way it's worked today. I mean, I'm in a really strange setting. I'm actually in one of the club members. This is his office. Really, this is his office, and he's and he has. He's kindly let me do this because my laptop decided to break on it on the first session, so I had to go for something completely different. But you know what? John's going to be here. John will probably chip in because
I will chip in just to annoy Paul.
He likes to say things.
David, is this your own liquid?
No. So obviously the company was formed in 2013. Our first distillations were in 2016. So ultimately, what we wanted to do is, I think we've tried to be as transparent as we can all the way through everything that we've done.
Yeah.
So we've created the brand Spade and Bushel, and ultimately that is always going to be sourced whiskies that we've managed to identify that we like, and really it's a product of the company, but it's not produced by the company. Now, what we've tried to do is bring the liquid on an evolution. So the 10-year-old here that you see, that was the cask strength rectified to a lower ABV. We've had people that really loved the cask strength, but they were saying, God, I can't process the alcohol. Just can't process the alcohol. But yeah, but it has, like, it is beautiful. I get it.
Isn't it? It's the, do you know what this? Do you know what? It just strikes me as being the cask strength. Clearly, when I get to taste it, it's going to have that lower ABV, but
lower ABV. Yeah.
No, there. The smell is there. That characteristic, that beautiful crisp apple.
And from my own perspective, Paul, I wouldn't have been a naturally cask strength type of aficionado. I'd always like to bring my own ABVs down.
Okay.
And as I was playing with the cask strength, if you tease it with a little bit of water, it just blossoms. The bouquets really open up. You start it brings it through a different life. And ultimately, that was why we said we'd go with round 2 of the 10-year-old. Bring it out of the cask strength realm, bring it into the normal ABV for normal people that don't or can't process the higher ABV alcohols. Yeah, to give them a chance to enjoy it, because it's full of sweetness. It's got almond, it's got honey, it's got vanilla, it's got butterscotch, it's got caramel in there. It's like it's just a really, really fine whiskey,
isn't it? No, it really is. And I hope for me, everyone needs to taste this. And it is one of those whiskies that you just have to devour. I mean, it's Moorish. I mean, I love the smell. Is just genuinely just envelops your nose. You want to.
Yeah, it's like honey and all sorts of stuff going on in there, isn't there?
You've got high-end green.
Yeah, I see Daniel mentions pineapple there.
Yeah.
You can pick that up for sure.
It's good to see Daniel Moody in. So Daniel, I see, David, I don't know if you're 100% aware, but most of the packages that went out, particularly in the north, were all hand delivered by members of the whiskey club. Some of the ones in the south were delivered by myself. So I had a wee trip around Dublin the other day, which I thought was going to take me 2 or 3 hours. I ended up being there for 7. It was a great trip around Dublin. But and the rest all went out via Irish whiskey auctioneers. But Daniel, I hand delivered to Daniel Moody. That was good crack. And also hand delivered to Sergius as well. But look, we've got such a community. I think the Irish whiskey community is we're very friendly, but we're huge. It's a big community. There's lots of people who really appreciate the whiskey. But we've got an audience. I think where your whiskey was sent out across the world. So you've got there's going to be people drinking this whiskey from more than likely the States, Germany, and possibly in a couple of countries where your whiskey boxes went out there. I'm touched that there's some, because I can see them. I can see people's names popping up here. It's great that they can come on at the right kind of time. There we go. We've got Courtney McGee from the States. Tina, you out of Germany, are you? Lots of different people from different places. But all the way out to Boston. There you go. So you have a very unique audience here that you can talk to, David, and you can have that conversation with, and that's going to allow you to spread that message about your product going forward. But no, love this, love the 10-year-old, love it. And you know what? For you're right in some respects. For those that maybe can't or won't accept cask strength whiskey, maybe because their body doesn't take to it, or because they genuinely feel that there's too much alcohol. This watered down version, as it were, but it's not really. It's very easy to drink.
It's very easy to drink. To me, that's a Friday night sipper. I love it. It's just that's me at home with herself on Netflix and just enjoying the moment.
You're just right. Get that Netflix account working. Get that working for you. Get that working. People are saying it's too easy. Now we have these things popping up, David, which are just little polls. People are just giving it a score out of 10,
cool.
Which is good. Which is good, and that way, hopefully at the end, when we're looking at some of the analytical stuff, you can see what people's opinions are of some of these products. But I think, I mean, I'll be honest, I really like that. It's hard for me to deviate from that. I've always championed, my friends will tell you, champion the cask strength. So I would drink that all day long also.
And ultimately, you know, we've had that whiskey for 4 years now. So we've taken it, and we've you know, what's next on your list, Paul? Just for out of curiosity,
we're going number 2, which is a 12-year-old double barrel.
So perfect. So there's the 10-year-old that literally, when we received it, we took an amount of it and we recast it into first fill bourbons. Now, what we like to do is, you know, we're very fussy with the casks that we bring into the distillery, because ultimately, you know, I think the influence of the cask is fundamental to the overall experience. So we like to use Evan Williams bourbon barrels. So we've taken the 10-year-old, and we've literally, it's now become a 12-year-old on the back of 2 more years in the second bourbon barrel. And ultimately what we wanted to do was kind of freshen up and infuse more toffee, you know, the classic bourbon notes of you know, vanilla and caramel and toffee, and just try and compound it. And we think it added a new dimension to it, as well as, you know, it moves up the age statement a little bit, and it softens it out, and it gives it another life. And this again is a very limited release for us, and we just wanted to bring the distillate on the journey. You know, ultimately we're a new distillery ourselves, Paul. So by us doing these particular experiments, then we're learning at the interaction between the distillate and the wood, and what sort of new things are happening. So it's a great development journey for us along the way, and we just get to tease with whiskies, which is that's huge novelty for us.
I always say, I mean, I'm probably quoted as saying that people who can manage casks within whiskey are doing it right. People who manage it well are doing it right, because, you know, once you create a good liquid, and these aren't your liquids, and they are good liquids, once you have a good liquid, it's hard, you know, you want to either develop it, you want to make it better, but to ruin it, you know, is disastrous.
Disastrous.
Yeah. And I think that, you know what, you're doing the liquid justice here. There is a complete comparison between the 10 and the 12 here. There's a journey. You can see the pathway there. I really do like that. But I like the fact that you're talking about, like, cask management's very important, and I like that you're being very honest. Let's talk about it. We're a young distillery here, very young distillery, and the only way to differentiate yourselves between your peers is to talk about how can you manipulate that liquid. And once you create your own liquid, how do you have how do you imprint onto the whiskey world, this is your statement, this is what you're about. And actually, if you can show through a process of using different casks, playing with different age whiskies, and manipulating it and creating something good, then we're going to expect that. I'm sorry to put you under pressure, but we're going to expect that with your own distillate. We're going to expect that in years to come. We know what they did with those barrels. We know what they did with very good whiskey. So let's hope they can do it with themselves, you know, with their own whiskey. And I think that's going to be, you certainly should be judged on that, because that's actually fundamental to what you're doing. It's fundamental to how you're manipulating these whiskies just now.
100%. You know, I think when we come out of the spade and bushel stuff and we talk about our own single malt, you know, we've been very, very pernickety is the word that I want to, and we've been very protective, so that everything that we've used and every decision that we've made has always been with the view to saying, hey, you know, there's multiple crossroads that you come to, and you can go left and you can go right, and what's going to add value all of the time, what's going to improve the experience all of the time, and we have been really, really fussy. And I'm happy to share that just as we get into that second part of the conversation.
No, here, be fussy. You know, certainly don't. You know, and if there's one thing I think there's one thing I appreciate, but I'm sure everyone who drinks whiskey is about. It's about, you know, don't put whiskey out there if it's bad. Don't put whiskey in a bottle if it's not worth drinking. So be fussy. If you don't think it's good enough, don't put it out.
Paul, if we don't like it, it doesn't go to market.
Yes.
If we can't stand over it and be passionate by it, then I can't convince somebody else to take a bullet for the team. Okay, if it's just not good enough, it's not going out. Simple as.
John's got something to say. I know he's trying to chirp in here.
I'm trying to be very quiet with some of the guys we've had on. I love the independent Irish distilleries that are coming about, and they're competing with Bushmills, Jameson, Milton, and I want to see something different. I love some of the stuff that are happening. I don't want somebody to try and replicate what's happening. What is your thought on the whole GI bill? As in, you have to have X, Y, Z to call it an Irish whiskey.
Yeah. So John, I think that it's
a big question.
John makes the point, but this has been happening certainly throughout a couple of the conversations already today. But it's something I think which has really been happening in Irish whiskey for the last 2 or 3 years, isn't it? This conversation about the GI, but about the technical foul, really, isn't it? It's about what we're going to expect going forward, and that's something that's an honest. I suppose that's an honest question, but I think what we're getting from a lot of different distilleries is that and they've been very honest in the response as well, is that they think that there has to be some movement, there has to be a little bit of maybe a look at the rules again, because rules are very important. I keep on wanting to say that, and I think I've said it a couple of times today. Rules are super important. They are. You know what I mean?
Well, my view on it is, okay, my background is microelectronics and pharmaceuticals. So I'm not a master distiller, right? Yeah. But by creating, and there's lots of people that I've met on the same journey that I've been on. And what you want to try and do is give them a framework with which, by protecting the sector and the quality that's inherent in Irish whiskey, I think you allow for that notion where the rising boat or the rising tide carries all boats. I think, certainly innovation is important fundamentally in terms of how Irish whiskey evolves internationally and amongst, whiskey connoisseurs and consumers. So I think what we want to try and do is there's always going to be that kind of, it's a compromise to some degree. We have Jameson that have done a tremendous, or Irish distillers and Bushmills and the big four that have literally put Irish whiskey or resuscitated Irish whiskey to the point where it's relevant again. Those guys are also innovating in terms of, some of grain. We see what Mark Rainier is doing down in Waterford in terms of the whole terroir. So there's opportunity to innovate. I think what we're saying is that, we can call it whatever we do, we can call it Irish whiskey as long as it's been 3 years and a day in wood. The question is, the notion of a pot still or the notion of a malt or the notion of these other categories. Do we break out those categories further? And I think, as the industry matures, I think it's okay to go back and revisit it and say, hey, you know what, there's more going on here. And I think let's not be afraid to change. So I think its purpose has always been positive to help us to keep the structure right, keep the quality right, and really, put us on a pedestal in terms of everything that it is that we do. But my view is, and we do it at work every day, don't be afraid to challenge yourself. And if something is there to be done, let's have the conversation. And as an industry, let's take a good path.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody is going to shoot down a good idea.
No, that is good. And what we're going to, I think for the consumer, and again, very much a consumer, that we're going to need people in all distilleries talking like that, wanting to try new things, wanting to push the limits, but at the same time, realizing that there has to be limits, though, that there has to be a level, because if not, we don't want to be unruly. We don't want to be in a position whereby we're just anything goes, and we'll just call it Irish whiskey and that'll be the end of it, because actually there's countries around the world that do that, and it's embarrassing.
It is a bit.
It's embarrassing.
I'm just watching Serge is saying there, and Dara is saying, all of a sudden you have way too many categories that it becomes unmanageable. I see Dara saying there that we don't want Irish whiskey to end up like rum, and really we don't. We want to give it, we want to make it a thing that is appreciated, has a style, and we can operate within, that the structures of that style without inhibiting it. And I think that's fundamental. You know, as we evolve, I think we'll get better on it, and the conversations will be more mature.
Yeah, very much. Just like the whiskey we're about to move on to is immature. We're going for a 5-year-old.
This is
so it's the Amarillo.
The 5-year-old. That's our baby.
So we're going to go for the baby. We're going to try that, and I think that I think this will be very interesting. I was a massive fan of number 3. Yeah, we're number 3. Yeah. Do you know what? I got a sniff of this. I've never tasted it, but I got a sniff of this while we did some pouring into the miniature bottles. I was very good. I was very good to myself. Look at the colour. Unreal. But I was very good to myself. I didn't throughout the entire thing. I chose not to taste anything, particularly stuff I'd never tasted before. And I didn't get. I was at Dublin Live in November there, and then you had some. And I think you had some for sale, actually. Yeah. And I was helping out Cologne. Brendan Carty let me, and I know I probably begged for me to come and help him, but he needed help anyway. But I said, listen, I'll come down and help you. I'll spend a couple of days in Dublin and support you in the festival. And at the shop, Celtic Whisky shop inside the Dublin Live, I saw the Amarone, and I was like, I really need to get that. Let me sort that out. So I had gone back to the stall. I'd gone back to Cologne's stall, and I was helping out. I was like, I really need to go back and do that. And I think there was a fire alarm had gone off, right?
Yeah.
The fire alarm had gone off, yeah. Had gone off. I'd gone back. I'd gone outside, and no one was taking the fire alarm seriously, I'll be honest. Everyone stayed in the building. I was outside going, I'm not staying in if there's a fire. But I waited until the fire alarm had gone off and everyone went back in, and I went to go and purchase it, and it had gone. It was sold out, and I was like, I am raging. And I went round to speak to your staff, and I was just like, any chance? And like, no, but you can order it. And I've never got round to ordering it. And do you know what? When I smelt this the other day pouring it, I was like, yeah, I should have ordered it. You know what I mean? Because it is, this is delightful. See, for 5 years, we talk about the colour, because the colour is absolutely brilliant.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Absolutely.
This is great.
Yeah.
You know what? We talk about bourbon cask all day long, because everyone and their dog uses bourbon casks at the moment. You know, cheapest form of maturation, isn't it? And then we're talking about sherry casks, because we're used to sherry casks. But it's these different types of wines and different types of woods that can be used. You know, why not? Just why not? And I think that, does this take away from it being a whiskey? No. Does it enhance it? Yes. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the colour, and here the smell is just great.
Yeah, and Serge makes it.
Walk me through, David. Walk me through these smells, because this is, you know, we've had those two, which are very crisp and very clean, you know, smells. You know, with that maybe tropical fruit in some of it.
It's like, you know, it's apricots, it's plum, it's raisins.
Yeah, it's like fig. Is it not just like a fig?
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah, fig wouldn't have come as. Yeah, but I get fig. You know, but yet at the same time, there's a little bit of cinnamon in there. You know, it's just, and ultimately, I come back to the point where, you know, we're a new distillery, and what we want to try and do is understand the interaction between, you know, the distillates and the wood. And Serge made the point there earlier on is, how do we manage to make sure the Amarone didn't overpower the whiskey? Well, what we did was we loaded up the casks, and we babysat that just to make sure, okay, where's it going? And when's the point? And it's always the classic question is when is it too much, or is it too far gone? Right? You know, so sometimes could we have left it? I think Ella will probably help me on this one. I think it was about 13 months in the Amarone cask. And it was at that point we were saying, you know what, we're good. Absolutely. And we went through multiple rounds internally here with the team. And then it was a collective opinion to say, you know what, that is just a peach.
David, I'm going to jump in here because I have the opportunity to do that, because I'm sitting beside Paul and he's sitting in my office. But I've got 2 questions.
Sure.
That is your liquid that you have.
That is not our liquid. It's under spade and bushel. So the spade and bushel is always it's not our liquid. It's stuff that we've got from somewhere else.
Oh, okay. And the Amarone, we've had this question asked: what specific brand is that? Because we've got a lot of wine connoisseurs.
Yeah, there's a couple of wine connoisseurs in the room.
Can you answer that, or is it?
It's Zenato.
Pardon?
Zenato.
Yes, okay. Thank you much, David. No, David, because you know what, and I know John was going to ask that question because at the very start you were very honest about where your bourbon casks came from, which I really appreciate. It's good when you know where it's coming from. You know, so there's a lot of bourbon enthusiasts, and they love their bourbons, and they maybe only stay with the same branding. I like. I was talking earlier on. I think I mentioned Kilhoman when we were doing our Scottish whiskey tasting, and they only use Buffalo Trace. You know, and it's great. I mean, Buffalo Trace, you know, for the buck, it's on the money, like, you know. Quality. Yeah, isn't it? Jesus, you can get a bottle of Buffalo Trace for like 19 quid, you know. So it's great, 14. But a 14 pound. But this is, look, the honesty that's really important, but it's good. I think it's nice to know where things come from. We have a couple of guys from the Northern Ireland Wine and Spirit Institute who are involved in our tastings, and they've been on all day. And they have been asking questions about where those different casks are coming from, because they'd be very specific. What I would say here, this is really interesting. If you've come across the Whistler 7-year-old cask strength, have you come across that before from Bois?
I haven't. I'm aware of it. I haven't had it.
Yeah. Now I would. This is interesting because I would have pegged that. We've done a couple of tastings on that. I did a tasting last year. Actually, was that last year? Or was it the year before? Remember when the Redbreast 32 came out? The Redbreast 32 came out, and I did a showcase event, and I pitched that alongside a Redbreast friend that had 25-year-old and the 7-year-old cask strength Whistler. And had it been a blind tasting, I think the cask strength 7-year-old might have won. It fell behind on a group of about 30 people. It fell behind by just a point.
Really?
Zero. So 0.1 behind the Redbreasts. And that's very interesting. But what it did for me is that it's always resonated as probably one of the best under, and normally you talk about non-age statements are under 10 years old. As an under 10-year-old single malt, I was just blown away by it. This is very interesting because this is now putting into a position whereby, well, this is only 5 years old, like, how pretentious can you be about the age statement of a whiskey? You can't really. Do you know what I mean? And we talked earlier on, we had McConnell's just before you, and we talked about their 5-year-old blend and the complexity of it. And people talked about, can you compare malts and blends? And this is interesting because I still think you need to look at the past two drinks we've just had. You know, the 12-year-old and the 10-year-old. And does it stand up well with them?
It does.
I think it very much does.
It's our baby. I agree.
And here, you're just right. You're just right to be very proud of that. Actually, those very the very rounded fruits at the start. You know, the rounded, full-bodied fruits that are coming through at the very start.
And it kind of hits you at the front of the palate, Paul, where you just get all the fruit, the plum, the raisins, and everything like that, right? And so you've all that sweetness going on there. And then as it goes further back the palate, then you get the legs and you get the malt coming through in a more dominant way. So it kind of has great balance in your mouth, and it brings all sorts of different. The taste buds are working overtime in it. I love it.
They are. I wonder if anyone gets this, but for me, it ends like a sherbet. It kind of fizzles like a sherbet at the end. It kind of fizzes at the end. Oh, but it did earlier from someone, but I think it kind of fizzes at the end, which that really nice texture at the back of the tongue. I really like that. No, that is nice. I'm hoping.
You just bring it as well, yeah.
But it's good, you know what? It's good to see people coming here and having a good yarn and having a good chit chat with on that here. I think you're getting some good plaudits. There's no one saying they don't like it.
I'm looking at it here, and everybody it's really positive, and they're really developing the flavors. It's fantastic. Great feedback.
Yeah, no, they are.
Paul, am I allowed? Can I give it a chance for absolute perfection?
Say that again, dude.
Am I allowed to give it a 10 for absolute perfection?
You can give it 10. You can go. You go ahead there. You score yourself. You can see that though. So David, we can see what you scored it.
I don't judge a whiskey on whether it's a malt or a blend. I judge a whiskey on how I appreciate it. It's got a degree of complexity. It's got a niceness. It's got smoothness. I like it, but I'm not going to say, oh, it's a blend. It's a malt. I think we've gone beyond that. I think there's been so many blends that were like, £20 a bottle mixers. I think we've gone beyond that now with Irish whiskies. This is nice.
Tell me this, David. Tell me this. We have your Ballyhoo and the introduction to Irish whiskey, which is a separate branding. But this here, here. I just had to clean my glass out with some water, but you have to drink the water now because that's just like that's just great. Oh my god, it's that. Do you know what? It really has a beautiful texture to it. What's the process with this? And your thinking, the Amarone cask takes well to young whiskey. You have young whiskey. Do we see an Amarone new whiskey? So we've got the Ballyhoo, that's the separate brand. We've got the Connacht. So we've got the Spain and Bushel. We've got your own branding, your own whiskey. At a young age, have you messed with an Amarone cask?
Not with our own single malt.
Okay, well that will be interesting. That's something for you to.
I'm going to caveat that, and I'm going to end the sentence with "yet."
Good man.
Right.
Good man. You're just right.
I think that the lesson that we learned from the Amarone was that it completely complements a good single malt distillate. I think they just come together beautifully, and we would be absolutely remiss if we didn't bring another Amarone expression out at some point in the future. I just don't know where it will fit yet, but it is absolutely in our arsenal.
No, well, I think you're spot on. I'm just thinking that people are saying stuff. John Daly's asking where and when is this on sale and price point? It's been on sale between your own shop, was it? It was online.
Yeah. So we did we bottled off about 150 bottles to bring up to Whiskey Live to kind of dip the toe a little bit. And I come back to the notion of, we're a young distillery and we're trying to figure out how, distillate and casks come together in a marriage. Some will take 3 months, some will take 6 months, some will take 13 months. Our Marsala took 2 years, and we're trying to manage that all of the time. So we have, I think, again, Ella will probably help me on this one. I think there's 1,500 bottles in this particular release. Serge just put up there, it's 49 quid down here. And I think there's probably only a couple hundred bottles of it left. Right? So I think
I'll be making a purchase of at least one, maybe two.
Yeah, I think it's on Irish malts. If anybody wants to get it, I think
that's probably good. That's good. So is it on Irish malts just now?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm just wondering if Robert, I know that you're there. I know that we've got that little message there, but I'm wondering whether or not, Robert, you can dig that out.
Grania has it. She just mentions there that it's obviously on our own website as well.
Yeah, that's important that you're selling for yourself also. That's very important.
I guess the one thing that Irish malts do really, really well is shipping. So in that particular capacity, trying to get it into the UK or further afield, they're far more confident on the shipping front than we are.
No, 100%, and it's great to work with John at Irish Malts, and they are our partner at the moment for the festival. So we're certainly up for that. But I would also say and encourage anyone that has their own site. There's no harm in selling through your own site. That's important for the distillery.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see Gareth just put up the link there.
Gareth, you're a good man. Thank you very much, Gareth. Listen, we're moving on to number 4, which is the double distilled single malt, 40%. So the double distilled single malt.
Yeah, so that's in terms of what our liquid is and where it's going to go. Our first release will be a double distilled single malt. So what you have there is ultimately what was just taken off the still. and it will give you a sense of, the base spirit that will progress into our finished single malt. And ultimately, behind that, I mentioned previously, we've been very, I see the webinar is going to end in 4 minutes, Paul, so I don't know whether we need to do a refresh.
Yes, we should be able to keep going.
Okay, so ultimately,
ask Robert.
Right, so where we've come from is, and I know there's been a lot of talk about malted barley, and Mark has kind of led the charge on that front. But again, we have 12 farms in County Wexford down at Hookhead, and ultimately, it's been kind of core to our basically our distilling strategy. So can I just hijack? So it's, let me see if I can find it here. I may not be able to find it here. So we have 12 farms literally down in Hookhead, and ultimately, what we like about it is, it's maritime. We're a maritime distillery. Growing conditions are fantastic down there. A novel aspect of the barley is that, with the onshore breezes, the barley can often go from green to white and back to green. There's a nice salty element in there. It's really, really cool. But it's fundamental to our kind of our grain strategy. We don't malt it to distillers malt moisture specs, so which is about 4.5% moisture. We malt it to about 4.8%. Moisture, so that makes it just, it's not quite as brittle. It gives it more flavor because, obviously the moisture is carrying flavor. It helps us in terms of our milling, and then in the context of fermentation, we have 7-day fermentations, but they're temperature controlled. So we don't let fermentation free rise up to about 32 or 33 degrees. We hold it at 27. And again, the purpose of that, we feel, is to prevent that, if we get a free rise, we want to prevent the creation of negative congeners. So what you have there is the distillate off the back of all of those decisions that we have made in terms of grain, malting, fermentation, all of that sort of stuff. And to me, so this is our first one. That double distill, I think somebody mentioned like green apples. I get green apples in that all day long. I get kind of some roasted almonds all day long. I get a little bit of black pepper in there. And we think it's a really good core distillate in there. And and to me, it does have a kind of an oily mouth feel. I don't know if you guys get that also.
I haven't put it in my mouth yet, but I'm just getting from this.
No, I like it. It's just smooth. Like,
yeah.
Can you ask me, how old is this?
So that's new make.
So this is just new make.
Pure off the stone.
Literally off the stone.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Do you know what? It's very much, on the nose. It is that seat that you just want to chew on it. On the nose, you want to chew on it, don't you? You want to just. This is what you want a bowl of. So you want a bowl of this, and you want to chew on it. So the nose is great.
I mean, new make is what they give you at the start of tasting, so you can't taste anything else, and everything tastes great. This is pretty good. I think.
Yeah.
There's.
So ultimately, where that goes on its journey, then. Go on, Paul. You have a question?
No, I'm going to say it's just really strange. I'm going to get. What am I getting? I'm getting like a kind of. It's like a.
What's weird? It's like a punching.
No, yeah, it's indeed.
Is it a punching?
Well, it's a new make. This is new make, double distilled new make.
Well, it's an unaged single.
It wasn't sell it as poaching, David. He's selling for you.
The stuff Clone and Ecklerville, that stuff. Punching.
I think a lot of people get hooked up on that, David. They get a wee bit worried about, okay. First of all, we know that what whiskey has to sell as for whiskey, but I think actually John makes a point. Something like this is very tasty. It's you can drink this. There is not a
without having to wait 3 years on a day.
Yeah, so without it becoming whiskey, this is drinkable liquid, drinkable spirit.
And I kind of put it in the mezcal sort of bracket, where it's a spirit that stands up on its own 2 feet.
Yeah.
The problem is that while we all appreciate what it is, the international audience doesn't know where to put it or how to deal with it. So, but it's a fantastic base spirit, brilliant in an Irish coffee. Oh my God, yeah. Irish coffees in my house are all driven by poaching, but it's a really fine spirit in its own right. And what we want,
yeah.
And ultimately, what we wanted to show is that, you know, when you have something there, you put that in a really good barrel or a second barrel. Now you start to be able to kind of bring the combinations of flavor together to give you something, you know, that's hopefully is extraordinary.
I think the Irish market needs to come together and say, do you know what? Yes, we can compete on the whiskey level, but we can compete on the white spirit level as well. You know.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely, I agree.
And your white rums, hutching, non-aged, Irish, oak, barley, spirits is something we can make something really amazing.
Yeah.
If we all come together.
I tell you what, David, we have I don't know. I've just had a wee message there from Ella, but Ella was saying maybe is it Gary? Is Gary there? Is Gary part of your team, David?
Gary is going to lead a tasting for us, and we've kind of we kind of jumped around a little bit on that front. Whether we stole his thunder or not, I don't know.
Well, do you know what? I really appreciate it. So I don't know. Yeah, so he can jump in if he wants, but I can't see him down as a presenter at the moment. So you're still the presenter. I don't see Gary being a presenter at the moment. So if Guy's there in the chat, he's going to have to make himself known, and he's going to have to allow one of the admins to bring him on board as a presenter. Oh, David's gone. Woo. But listen, you're back, and we can wait.
100%. Loads to talk about.
John got very excited, but we're just going to blame John because maybe John was on this morning as one of the admins. Maybe we'll blame him. We won't blame Niall, who's away for a barbecue. Probably was Niall
or Robert.
No, I don't think it was Robert. I'm not. Robert's the saviour. Robert brought it back. Robert is the saviour of the admins.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Jason, for coming back in. Jason was on a break and he came back in to do some adminning. David, do you want to bring on Gary as well, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, we still have more to talk about. I think
exactly.
The banter is flying, right? So I think, you know, we've good conversation. There's great engagement with the crew. So I think, Paul, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, I think if we just bring some people back in, so we're going to let them just come back in, but we're going to move on to number 5. That's the triple distilled. Yeah. So it's number 5, John. We'll move on to number 5. I think
it's very new.
New make again. I think I was very impressed, David. I'll be honest. If we're going to talk about the last one, that double distilled. Tell me this: double distilled single malt, triple distilled single malt. What's your thought process on the single malt versus single pot still Irish whiskey debate?
I enjoy both styles. Right?
That's a very good answer.
But I'll emphasize styles, right? Because certainly I think for me the pot still, because you're bringing in green barley, it's literally the kind of the production of it. Let's just call it the production of alcohol, which through fermentation and that, you know, the enzyme count and the interaction with yeast. You know, there's a core spice to pot still that takes a much longer period of time to kind of soften. And to me, pot stills need to be in the range of about 7 to 8 years in really good barrels to try and bring down that spice, that kind of, I find it an aggressive spice. Single malt, obviously it's designed for good fermentation. You know, the production of negative congeners and all that sort of stuff is restricted. And to be honest, it's an easier distillate to manage. The pot still is more difficult. It's more difficult at milling. It's more different at brewing. It's more difficult at fermentation. It's more difficult at distillation. But, you know, when you look at some of the redbreasts, oh my God, I mean, that is just epic whiskey. And it is, you know, ultimately we're all moving into that space because I think we've captured that as the essence of Irish. Right.
Yes.
So, but I think what you'll find is that the newer distilleries will bring out really good single malts, while they're looking at their pot still mash bills to kind of age along the way before that they come out. Because when they come out too young, they're fiery, they're spicy, they're not particularly pleasant. They just need more time. And we classically, we put them into, we just call them young, right? And just, we know they're not ready. So in my mind, a really good pot still is just epic. You just can't accelerate it. It has to go through the process. And that's a longer aging process to me than a single malt would have.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. John, you had something to say on that?
No, I was just going to say that it's a different process. I don't expect a 10-year-old single malt to be the same as a 10-year-old, but still, you're asking for different flavor profiles.
It's going to be different. Yeah, it's absolutely going to be different because of the unmalted barley percentage. You know, and there's a lot of people now that are bringing in a little bit of oats, which I think oats are really oily and it's a great mouth feel, and you know it brings a creamy sort of experience to the whole thing. So that notion of managing the pot still mash bill, I think there's loads of places to go with that in the context of styles in the future, and I see that as an avenue of innovation.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. John.
No, sorry. We had the non-GI cologne earlier, and it was absolutely amazing. There's a lot of really good feedback, and it's what was the traditional Irish pot still maybe 100 years ago, and now it's being like influenced by some of the big players.
Yeah. So I think you know, Cologne took a little bit of inspiration maybe from the likes of Finnan O'Connor, who's looking at these old mash bills and he's discussing that. I know that
Peter Mulrine is looking at it also. You know,
yeah.
So
that's right. Yeah.
And ultimately, where did it come from? It all came through, you know, the taxations that was put on malted barley back in the 19th century, and that, you know, we had, I don't know, did we have 100, 200 distilleries at that time? So the tax on malted barley created the innovation where the pot still mash bill became the mix between, you know, green barley and malted barley to bring down the tax. So ultimately, you know, the economic environment stimulated a pivot in the Irish distilling industry, and ultimately that became, you know, I suppose what we became more known for.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to jump in here because
he loves it.
No, this is important to me.
John's taking over tonight. I'm going to break.
A couple of people said to me, you know, Irish are smooth, and you know, Eddie L. Jameson is smooth. I don't want a smooth whiskey. I want a whiskey that grabs you. I got upset by some of the putching guys who made putching that's nice to drink, as opposed to grab you by the throat and, you know, rite of passage. I want Irish whiskey to take over. The pot still side, whether it's long-lived, short-lived, in a cask, that's not important. But some of this distinct individual, that's important to me, and I think it's important to most.
It becomes, you know, you want robust whiskies, don't you? You want robust.
Yeah, they need to stand up, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I want to say, sorry, Gary, you've come into the chat, so thank you. Gary, I would have said that earlier had John not kept on chirping over my shoulder.
I want to
say welcome, Gary, for the chat.
Doing,
Gary, what do you do? What do you do at the distillery? Just give me a wee rundown. What do you do?
So to be like, I'm just a big whiskey fan, just like everyone else.
Good man.
You have to acknowledge everything. You have to appreciate everything. Everyone's going to be big fans of different things. What David was saying earlier wasn't a massive, huge person cask strength. First time I had a cask strength whiskey, it absolutely killed me. It shocked me for about a week or two, and I couldn't look at a bottle of whiskey for a while. And since then, I absolutely love it. So I find, especially being able to have something kind of higher alcohol, it gives you more opportunity to be able to add the water in and open it up. I'd be a big fan as well of whiskeys that are going to be about 45, 46%. That's why I'm a massive fan of the Spade and Bushel range, because you can add those few drops of water in. And for someone that has never really drank whiskey before, it's catering to everybody. It's going to cater to the guys that have never had a whiskey neat in their life. And it's going to cater to the massive whiskey fans that have been drinking it the past 10, 15 years.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Guy. Look, I'm noticing. I'm just trying to read the crowd and hear what people are saying. But we had that before we went into lockdown. We had the double distilled single malt, and we've now got the triple distilled in front of me. This triple distilled, which people are saying, they're like, oh, it's much more different. It's fruitier. It's less cereal notes. It's easier drinking, very enjoyable. Again, it's that relationship between is it triple distilled whiskey that we're looking for? Is it double distilled whiskey we're looking for? Where's the balance? I actually think they're again. We talked about malt and single malt stuff. Triple and double distilled malts are completely different. They're completely miles apart. But this is really nice. I mean, I don't think Irish whiskey has to be triple distilled.
I agree,
and I think it's nice.
Agree. Yeah,
it's nice to see double distilled whiskies. And what I was going to say was actually harken back to some of the old Bushmill stuff before they went triple distilled. Their old stuff is really good. And you know what I mean? And I think that maybe I would get shot for saying that, but I just genuinely do think that there's no harm in double distilled whiskies. Being a Scotch lover initially for the first part of my whiskey life, that's all I had. We only had double distilled whiskies, and when I was introduced to triple distilled whiskies, there is a complete difference. There's a complete take on it. Scottish whiskey I do find to be a little bit more. It's more meaty. It's more
great word. Great word.
There's a lot more power. You don't even need the alcohol. It's just got a lot more body.
Yeah, more complex. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we are. You start to refine spirit by continually distilling it.
I would challenge Paul another is in that. Yes, double distilled is more complex. Double distilled, it's just pure distilled. But I want, as an Irish person, my whiskies to be a challenge.
Yeah, challenge. Yeah, of course.
I don't want smooth. I don't want Jameson and ginger.
Yeah, they're all. I mean, that is that not the marketing thing, David? Though, is that not what the marketing has been about Irish whiskey, and that's why it's managed to get to where it is. There has been a push to say Irish whiskey, triple distilled, smooth. Anyone can drink it. Your ma.
But listen, if you kind of you look at where's our biggest competitor as a sector, it's just over the water. It's Scotch, and they've kind of owned that double distilled sense. So does that mean, do we fight them? In terms of, well, you have a Scotch double or an Irish double, it's still a double, and how do you differentiate? What makes our story different? Now, I'm of the view that, like Tyrconnell is a double distilled single malt, right? Isn't Tyrconnell a fine whiskey?
Yeah.
Is Tyrconnell? We've had this discussion today. Tyrconnell not involved at all in the entire festival. But I will happily say this quite specifically that, for example's sake, is this not one of the finest single malts on the planet?
All day long.
The planet. Do you know what I mean? And I would say their core range, the 3-10-year-olds with the port, the sherry, Madeira, unreal. The core range non-age statement they have even just now is good for a non-age statement, single malt. So do you know what? Kudos, and does you know what? Completely different to the triple distilled stuff. Completely.
What I would say,
I see two great comments there, and ultimately from Brendan and Jarlath, and the reason that we have the triple distilled in there is that it's lighter. And then the absolute where we want to go with this is that it will take on a lot of cask influence. So that's why we're down that particular space. We and then Brendan comes in after and he said, no, we don't want to fight Scotland. I think, their industry is substantially bigger than ours. We need to step out in our own right. The Scottish Whisky Association have created a very rigid framework. And I think we're loath to kind of align with that. We want to do stuff. We're younger, we're fresher, we're more innovative. I think we've all sorts of stuff going on. And I think that's our view is you get a nice, meaty, strong, solid, double distilled Irish whiskey. And then we'll do something that's lighter, but it has all sorts of other avenues for us to. So I'm looking at rum. I've Sauterne. We've some port. We've some Marsala. We've all sorts of stuff cooking down the back. We want to see we want to see where it goes.
If Chris Hennessy is on here, I don't know if he is, but I think I might have seen his name earlier on. Anyone, look, me and him are like, we just love rum cask stuff. Anything rum cask, and massive fan of that. But, we're talking earlier on, and we're talking to we're talking to Brendan earlier on. It's this idea, like Brendan did his whole thing where he's gone with this Bondi cask experimental. Brendan, I remember having the first, and I hope he doesn't just walk away from this conversation. But I remember the first conversations I ever had with Brendan, and he was like, "No, I'll never do anything other than my own liquid. I'll not put anything else out. I'm not going to go and buy other liquid. I won't do it." And I think Brendan was turned, specifically. I don't know who turned him. Maybe it was me, and maybe it was someone else. But maybe it was this idea that, we talk about the casks. And we talk about let again, and we said at the very start of our conversation, David, it's about that cask manipulation, isn't it? So I'm loving the fact that you are going to be exploring lots of different casks. The triple distilled and the double distilled will take the cask completely differently.
Yeah, that's very important. And if you look at the double distilled that's coming out this year, ultimately we searched high up, low down to try and find a cask that was going to be suitable for it. So we have an Oloroso finish on the double distilled, and ultimately the bodega that is coming from is Fernando de Castilla, which is in Cadiz, which is in the south of Spain, and they do an epic antique Oloroso, and ultimately we've brought that influence into our double distilled single malt, which is being finished right now. And ultimately, the marriage is fantastic from my perspective. Now, I have bias, obviously, but we really worked hard to try and find out where are we going to go, and as a sherry producer, they are completely, everything that they do is non-additive, non-average. It's real old traditional techniques. Barrels are epic in terms of you bring them in and they're just banging with odor, and it's almost an invasion of your nostrils. But it's
you don't want Irish whiskey to be smooth, easygoing mixers. No, you want Irish whiskey to grab you by the balls. We don't have like the pitted stuff. Like the amount of stuff we create, the amount of stuff that's happening, even in the north right now, there's 6 distilleries. 10 years ago, there's 3.
Yeah, no, you really had just.
Now we're hitting about 60. I want a distinct between where they're from, how they build it, how they grow their own.
100%. I think
Waterford's doing.
I think David's making those points, which is, I think that you see that, and what I want to even prove that point, John, is what Robert's just mentioned. So Robert, one of the admin guys, fantastic, has just reminded us that because we took that downtime because of the server, we need to score that double distilled before we score the triple. I want us to reflect back on that double distilled whiskey, not whiskey, from the new make spirit, which will become great whiskey. Let's get a score on that. So if you don't mind, Robert, if you could put that up, that'd be very kind. So yeah, we'll score this one just now. And again, look, it's based on what it is, and what we know it's going to be. But I think we know what it is, and then we'll do the same for the triple. I'm very intrigued in terms of this idea of sitting side by side a double distilled single malt from the same still and a triple distilled single malt and put it into the same casks. And I want to see that. David, I don't know if you've watched the blasphemy that I have created in the last couple of weeks for this festival, but there was I funnily, jokingly, as part of the club, I funnily said, listen, I'm going to do some casks. I'm going to do some Buckfast casks. And they just looked at me and went, you're off your head. I tell you what, David, do you know what? First of all, it's great that we can go and source Madeira and port and sherry and all these beautiful casks, right? We can do that, and they cost a bit of money, and distilleries will do that, and they'll play around with the liquid. But look, John Daly from Whiskeycraft IE has these beautiful little, have these little 2 liter Hungarian virgin oak casks for your own maturation purposes. And you know what I thought? I'm going to take 4 of those casks and I'm going to use it with Buckfast. And I think, and then influence, have that influence with some whiskey. And this is blasphemy. And people will be like, why did you do this? And who the hell think you are doing it?
Nobody said it was
but what I did was to season the cask. Obviously, you do the process where you swell the barrel and then you put in your seasoning. Well, I thought, I'm not going to season it with a bare spirit. I don't want to do that. We could do that. Don't want to do that. I seasoned it, first of all, one with Iron Brew, one with WKD Blue, one with rum, and one with gin, the gunpowder gin from John Shamble. And the rum was from the Appleton Estate. It was nice rum. It wasn't crap rum. It was nice rum. And I seasoned them all for 3 weeks, and then I emptied those casks, and then I filled those casks with Buckfast for 3 weeks. And what we did was we bottled that Buckfast. We bottled the influenced Buckfast. That's interesting. But then what we did was we put in 3 weeks again of 13-year-old cask strength Bushmills, and we put that in there. We're not messing about on the liquid. We thought we better put in good liquid. Yeah, it needs to be good. Let's see what the influence is.
Cask strength.
And we've now decanted that and bottled that. But I think what we get there, David, and what I get within that very short experiment of only 9 weeks is a complete change in the same spirit, being influenced by those little tiny wee casks for very short periods of time. And those that were doing our bottling throughout the process and were taking wee nips here and there were very surprised about the complete differences. So I'm one of those guys that I want to see all those different casks. I want to see the rum, and I want to see the Madeira and the Masala, and I want to see all these casks with the similar or same, alcohol being put into them, and watching that journey. Because actually, we can talk about terroir all day long, and I know that people are jumping on that, but I generally do think that the cask has something special to add to the entire process. And could I tell you the percentage? No, but I will tell you it's probably one of the most important parts of the process.
Agreed.
You just see from that small experiment, you just could not say that. Yeah.
My view that the cask is going to, now it's a function of time. So time is always going to have, an impact on the longer the time, the shorter the time, more flavor, less flavor. But the cask is going to affect the outcome. And, to agree that's somewhere between 50 and 70%, right? So inherently, you have to have good barley. You have to have good barley in there. That's going to give you the opportunity, and it'll give you some of the attributes. But the cask, if you have a shit cask, it's going to be a shit product. If you have an epic cask, then you have a real opportunity to develop something special. And I'm with that. And certainly what we've done is our triple distilled, we've taken an absolutely non-standard approach to add back from the first distillation to the second distillation and onwards. So we want to mess around with that so that we can do something where, your triple distill is always going to be lighter. It's going to be less complex because the meat is in the second distillation. But that's where our fruits and our pineapples and all of those things come together. Pop that into a little bit of rum, bring it in, so we can explore all of those things. And you can have pineapple and Irish whiskey in the same sentence, right?
Yeah, well.
Can I ask you about the third distillation, right? Because I am relatively new to whiskey, but if you can distill second time to 60, 70%, why would you do the third distillation? And does that not take away from the innate flavors of the distillate that you're making? Or I just like, it's a random question.
Yeah, can you hear that okay, David Jans?
Yeah, no, go on. Say it again to me, Paul. I didn't quite catch all of it.
Yeah, so what he was saying was, first of all, the double distilled, then the triple distilled. With the triple distilled, that final distillation, you've already taken the second distillation, took it to X% alcohol. Doing it the third time, are you not, and what John is saying is, are you not actually, you're not losing something of that second distillation. You're not losing something, the integrity of that, the kind of the gravelness, the are you not losing that by doing that?
It's fundamentally it's where you take your heart's cut within the distillation. Okay, and how specific. So obviously, if you're talking about 100%, your heart's cut might be could be 40%, and you still have 60% of the alcohol left. So it depends on where you take it, what you leave in it, and what you strip out of it. And that's what we do with our foreshots and feints. Ultimately, is that we make the double distillate has a very narrow heart's cut that goes for a specific flavor profile that we're looking for, and then we can bring the rest into the triple distilled, and then we can take a different view on the heart's cut process within the triple distillation.
Okay.
A little bit technical, but it's literally where the distillers, the flavor profile, and the distillers, their technical expertise starts to come down.
No, I was on. I don't know if he's still online, but I think Jarlath was online at one point, and we were talking. Jarlath from Eckneville, and he said we were looking at a new make, and he goes, they went too deep into the hearts, and he could tell that.
Yeah.
The distillery,
I think that's a nose. That's a nose for you guys, Gary. I'm just wondering. I'm having a look at some of these comments up and down, and we've got Dar Daly, and I know, David, you've said there, it's a great observation. This idea of using different types of wood. I know that Method Madness went out on the whole chestnut, didn't they? I'm not sure how successful that is long term. We've got cherry wood, isn't it? That's being used also. Acacia seems to be like a big. Yeah, and that's worked a treat, hasn't it? That's really worked
for Bushmills for sure. Yeah,
it really has. And there's that would just be great to see where that goes. Guy, what's your thought? I want to hear more from you. I know you're sitting there, you've got the wee pods in. I want to hear you chatting away. Go ahead.
Well, I completely agree. I love wine finishes. That's one of my biggest things. With every essentially distillery that comes out with a wine finish, it's either going to make it or break it. It's going to be one of the best you've had, or you're not even going to taste any wine finish off it, is what I found. Where they might label, oh, we've left it in a red wine barrel, as Infidel, all of these different ones. And it sounds amazing and it smells incredible, but you don't get it to come across on the flavor. That's like Damaroni, I absolutely adore. Any good wine finish, I think, opens you up to a lot more. From what I've seen, friends, family members that haven't drank whiskey, once again, that would drink wine. If I have a whiskey that's aged in a good wine barrel, that opens them up to that as well. Once again, it is similar to any other barrels that you're using, whether it be rum or kind of something like that. Rum, I find, does come through a little bit more, but if you can essentially get a really good bourbon barrel, you're obviously, if you have like the product, like the big thing would be the different malts that you're using. And I know the brewer's malt is going to give you a little bit more of sweet notes coming through on it.
Yeah. I mean, on this triple one, which I've been smelling it, but I've been tasting it. Yeah, those they're yellow fruits on here. Am I getting that right? Yeah. These are yellow fruits. These are lovely, aren't they? These are lovely. I really do appreciate that. This will be very interesting to see how people score this one relative to the double distilled. But I think that it's I know it's going to be hard for me to determine what I like more. I want the double distilled to be better. That's just my personal preference. I want it to be better, but this is really nice.
And it's funny. I see that one rum being a strong sort of a play that a path that we will take. But like Jarlath said earlier on in the conversation, it really, that lighter style of distillate is literally going to, weave its way and marry in with different cask styles. Like I'm looking at bringing some wine barrels from Napa Valley. We have a great story where there's a vineyard in Napa, and the owner is from County Sligo. So specific to Connacht. So we will have a Mayo distillate with, in effect, a Sligo Cabernet Sauvignon, bring them together, and it's like a 94-point rated Cabernet, and we're kind of saying, oh my God. So that's on the high seas, and that's due into Ballina in the next, it's 28 days of shipping time, and we're kind of saying, okay, we're going off down that path as well. And I just love the notion of, those casks have a local story, have really come with a strong pedigree, and I think that triple distilled is more of a grab for that than the double distilled in the context of compatibility.
Okay, no, that's good.
So basically, you're choosing a barrel. To Gary's point, you're choosing a barrel and you're choosing a distillate, and you're trying to bring them together. And not all distillates and not all barrels are a match.
No, I agree. I would agree with that entirely. Damien has I think Damien's already been answered. It's been answered. Ella answered it. Okay, that's dead on. Shall we move then on to the number 6, which is the Marsala cask, 14-year-old? Should we do that?
So this is literally has not been released yet. So you guys are getting to savor that first.
Exclusive.
It is. It will be released through Irish Malts in August, and they will support us on a pre-release process. The Marsala, the color on that is outrageous.
Oh. Yeah, we love that color.
Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous.
It's
and
how old is it?
So
14 years.
14 years. And it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years. I think it's just over 2 years actually, in Marsala. So Marsala is a completely different flavor profile to some of the sweeter ones that we would have had. So for me, this one has lots of citrus. It has ginger. It has almonds. It has kind of cranberry. You get the oak in there. It's like super fruity, absolutely super fruity.
But it's something you want to
great.
You want to swim in this.
You want to drink it?
You want to swim in it.
Yeah.
but it makes you want to dive in. You
really get sucked into the tongues, don't you? The aroma is epic.
You get drawn straight in there. You want to dive in. That's a lovely nose.
I think what you guys, I think the ABV is what, 66%.
Oh no! On really? This one here, it's 45%.
45. Okay. So
me and you will be talking about that in a second.
I have.
Yes, I'm going to that with you in a second.
I'm still on the official tour guide.
He's on the official tour guide.
The official tour guide version.
But
does that make sense?
Yeah, you're on a tour guide. He's on that. But listen, at the 46%.
46.
I'm at 46, and so is everyone else. Everyone else is at 46%.
So where we are is like the Amarone. Really, we hit a sweet spot on the ABV at 45%. So we're kind of saying this needs to be in the same ballpark for it. So that So mine is a little bit stronger, but I'm working the nose.
No, I'm actually gonna open that one. I know that I got it sent. It arrived literally this afternoon. I had to get it couriered over to myself because I wasn't at home. But I got
your house.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah. So yes.
I just think the fucking water.
Listen, so I'm going to open this one. Yeah. So
where's
this is the 66%.
Yeah. And I see. Yeah, there's great feedback, which is great to see. And Charlotte, I'm interested to see. You have a very good palate. How do you see this one? Cloves, and I get like a roast coffee off it. I get like hazelnut and nutmeg, and
I think what I mean. I think Jonathan was saying earlier on he didn't have access to his microphone today, but it's. I'm happy Jonathan popping on at any time, but this is really good. See the high abbreviation. That smells slightly different. I mean, it smells really heavy. It's really heavy.
But you still get the oak influence coming through, which is ultimately what we want. Is we want to retain kind of the whiskey credentials. So you're getting the Marsala, but it's still a whiskey, right? It's still a beefy whiskey.
The 66%.
That softened you up, Paul.
David, do you know what? I always wind people up. I wind Jarlath up a lot because Jarlath attends our club. So Jarlath attends our club. There's a couple of our guys. Brendan attends our club. There's a couple of our guys who are involved with their own distilleries or work for distilleries who come to our whiskey club. Right? We're probably one of the only whiskey clubs that has so many diverse people from different distilleries coming. And it's great because you get to put them on the spot anyway, even when they're there for the relaxing time, you still get to put them on the spot. But I always say that, there is this argument about releasing at different strengths. And actually, this is interesting because is it comparable to what Ecklandville have done with that Durnville's Palo Catardo release, where they went 55%, 48%, 42%, the same liquid, the same age, but at different cask strengths, a different strength coming out the cask. I thought that was interesting because I did a parallel tasting and tasted all three, and they were completely different on the nose, and then on the taste, you were still getting different tastes, and even by changing the water and watering them down, you're still getting different tastes. So this is very. I would say if the person who likes to sell Connacht whiskey would like to sell the Connacht whiskey at 66%, there'll be at least 5 people in this room I can see 100% definitely buying a bottle.
Right. So we might change our strategy just on.
There's 2 people.
There's 2 people in this room. We're buying 5 bottles. No, David. No, in all seriousness, that's really nice. I'm loving
the feedback.
He wants to taste it. I know he wants to taste it at higher strength because do you know what? And Gary made the point earlier. If we're dragging back to what Gary said, it's good to have things at higher strength, a higher ABV, because it allows you to manipulate it yourself.
No, yes, give people the choice.
Give people the choice.
It opens it up a lot more.
Always,
40% whiskey is what the consumer is used to, and we're not taking away from 40% whiskey. We're not taking that away. I think that it's been a good. What's been nice is to see 43% whiskies and 46% whiskies. That's been really nice to see. But to take on a new breed of drinker, someone who wants to go, do you know what? What's it in its raw state? What does it look like? Give me that. I'm going to take that. If I can drink it to that state, I'll drink that. If I can manipulate it to the point, I like that. No. It's anyone. And this is the thing at 40%. Although, and maybe it should be even better than that, at any percent, when something's giving you to, you've put it out, David, you've put out a whiskey at a percent. You've done that for the consumer. Yeah. You've already told me that you're not going to put a whiskey out unless you like the taste of it.
Yeah.
So 40%, it's a good tasting whiskey. But the issue then becomes that 40%, that person tasting that whiskey in the mindset potentially, thinks they have to put water into it. And now what we've done is we've given someone the bottle at the whiskey percentage we think is a good taste, and we've put it out at a good. That's what we want it to taste like when the consumer drinks it. But the mentality is, actually, I need to put a little bit of water in that to get something from it. And actually, what we've done is we've now watered it down to whatever percentage it was, or we've manipulated that original taste that we wanted to get. You know what I mean? So
whiskey needs to know what it wants.
Yeah, but whiskey does know, and I think this is the point when we know it does, because we've got some great tasters here. We've got people who work within these distilleries who are tasting it on a daily basis. They're in their tasting rooms. I'm seeing a lot of people doing a lot of videos now from their tasting rooms, going, "These are the 25 whiskies I have to taste today," and they're going through that, on a regular basis, and so what you want to put out. The consumer needs to know that. I think the consumer needs to know that.
I get that, but sorry, I'm on the side here. But you're like, do I want to go the whiskey that I like, or do I want the whiskey that's going to sell, or the whiskey that's going to go well with ginger ale, or the whiskey that will go well with Coke? And that's where I drink whiskey neat, Paul neat, in the water. It's never going to be the big seller. Do you aim for whiskey that's going to go well with the gin? No. But if you're being commercial,
I know if you're talking about commercialization of the whiskey product. But I think David,
Jameson did Jameson and ginger.
Yes, there is
Women bought it. Women loved it.
Yeah, and you've got Bushmills would have red and white. There's this whole aspect of using the product to sell the product. There's no harm in that. I doubt very much, David, that you would sell hundreds of cases of 66% Marsala 14-year-old. Maybe you would.
As a potential measure.
Maybe you would. But what you would is you would definitely have a clientele within the industry, within the people who first of all want to know where it's going, and then the people who love Irish whiskey, all those people who are involved in this festival, and all those people involved in societies and clubs around Ireland and across the world. Well, they will buy into that, and so a small single cask offering at 66% is probably that would sell. We know that, and you know why? We know these things. And it's all about the stock levels. I would just presume, David.
It's actually one thing that you can't ever sort of there's always a commercial twist to this as well. And what we do know is the excise on a 66% ABV and put VAT on top of that means that bottle is getting up to 80-90 quid a bottle, and you become a very then you become a very niche. It becomes a very niche thing. And ultimately, for a new brand like us, we want to try and put really nice whiskies into the general domain for people to pick it up and try it and say, so it's like the Amarone. The Amarone's in there at 50 quid, and it is a banging whiskey at a banging price. And all of a sudden, it helps us in terms of our people's awareness of us and what we do. And that's always that sacrifice that you're trying to make. You want to make it accessible. You want to make it real. You want to make it a little bit different. You want to show that you've lots of different tricks up your sleeve and different styles that you're trying to adopt. And you want to bring your fans on the journey.
What do you make of, David? What do you make of the? I mean, you just talked about the price increase to get it to that point, and I think that surely one of the core examples of that has been the 12-year-old Redbreast with the 12-year-old cask strength editions, and people do pay the extra amount. They pay the extra amount, and I think that I know Phil has just messaged in there saying, David, at 90 quid he'll buy 2 bottles. But that's fine. And Charles says not if he gets there first. But I think that and listen, you guys can fight all day long, but there will always be. I do genuinely believe that there will always be a niche market, and if you want to be in that niche market, you'll find people that will want to be there and join you. Build it and they shall come. That idea is always
feel the dream stuff. Yeah.
It's always good to listen. Generally, I always think, market research is always good to listen to the consumer.
I agree. And that's where, a lot of the stuff that we test or we kind of try and figure out where to go. Whiskey Live is a really important aspect of that kind of development and style. And we kind of see where what's current, what might be evolving, what's really good. You get an early sense of it. So things like that really will determine how we react because the styles change.
I find even just a small percentage, like the 5 and 6%, does make a massive difference, though. It gives you that little opportunity to cater to more people, I found.
Yeah.
It's, do you like what you're drinking, or do you want to like what you drink?
Yeah, is that. David,
I have to say, I'm loving the feedback from it, ultimately from a development side, this is something that we've been working at, Ella, Grania, myself, and the wider team have been working at that. So we know where this is at, but I'm just loving everybody's feedback on it to say, this is pretty top. So that's fantastic.
Right. Paul, throw it out. Give it to him.
I love Jared's commentary. He calls it tobacco. I see to me, it's almost like roast coffee, but I can totally see the tobacco.
David, John's just making a point. He's just saying, and he's just been he's being very cute at the moment. He's just saying that he wants you to come up to Belfast and do a tasting with the club, so we'll give you very honest feedback. And I think that I think we do that all the time, but we're doing that just now also. You are getting very honest feedback.
Yeah, and ultimately, we sometimes we get good feedback, and other times that we might have a disagreement. But yeah, we're happy to listen. We're absolutely happy to listen, and yeah.
I am a whiskey drinker. The guys in our club are whiskey drinkers. We'll say, you know what, I like that. I don't like that.
And it's hugely subjective.
Some of our very good friends, we're very, very harsh. We'll say, I like that. We don't like that. It's not to say, that's good, that's bad. It's like, this is what we like.
Yeah, I have a very special whiskey here. Then is this right, David? I have a very special whiskey here. It says Connacht whiskey, single malt, Oloroso finish, 59%.
This is
cask one.
Number one.
1st of the 6th, 2016.
Bags?
Do I really want to open this, or do I sell it on the black market? Sorry, did I say it out loud? No, let's be honest. Wow. Wow. Okay, we're gonna taste this, and David, you can walk us through with this, and you can shout as much and as loud as you can about this.
Well, so we kind of at the beginning of the conversation. One of the things that we've tried to do from the very, very outset is make really good decisions about, our processes, our ingredients, the way in which we conduct our business, in effect, on every level, whether it's water, whether it's barley, whether it's fermentation, whether it's distilling, whether it's aging. Everything we do here, we do under one roof. What you have there is the culmination of the last 4 years. And this is our single malt, and it's great to say our single malt. And
David, I want to say something very quickly, and I hope that I nearly got a tear to my eye. I'm going to say why, right? I'm going to say why, David, because do you know what, David? I've been drinking whiskey. I don't know. I'm 38, and I've been drinking probably whiskey as a
30 years.
No. Well, my mummy would have given me some for my toothache, but no, I would have been drinking whiskey properly, and I say properly because I'd have been one of those people as a student. I would have gone in a bar and I just said, "How much is that whiskey there? I'll take that because it's a tenner and it's going to be good. So give me a shot of it." And maybe it wasn't good, but I got to that stage where I started to appreciate whiskey, and I love to drink whiskey. But this is very interesting. This is the first time that the first time I've ever been given a shot of whiskey, which is to be released first ever anywhere.
Yeah,
and I'm very touched by that, and I really do. And I hope people understand how maybe there's a couple of our guys there who are in different distilleries, but you are bringing a tear to my eye because this means a lot to me. I know, and I hope it means a lot to yourselves as your distillery. And I can see that, and I can see how much this really means to yourselves. This is 4 years in the making.
Well, it's for me. It's 7. I set up the company in 2013. It took there's fundraising, there's construction, there's installation and commissioning, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. So this is 7 years work for me, and ultimately, I said to you along the way, every decision that we've made has been thoughtful with a view to no shortcuts. If we wanted to take a shortcut, I could have had this out last year. This will be a 4.5-year-old single malt, and we wanted to wait for it to be right. We had to wait a year, in effect, to find the right finishing barrels. So we weren't happy with some of the ones that were presented to us. Just didn't like it. So everything has been measured, and this is the culmination of it. And it is, it oozes. Like the barley comes through, the bourbon, the vanilla, the toffee, the bourbon cues are in there. They're fantastic. The Oloroso just gives it, oh my God, it gives it walnut. It gives it dried fruit. It smells of autumn. That's the only way that I can describe it. It's like there's an inherent
paint thinner and the esters and the ethers.
Oh yeah, and it's yeah.
David, I'm being serious. I mean,
he's crying. He is crying. You made the man cry.
So don't cry.
You made him cry.
Sorry, David.
You made Paul cry.
Sorry.
Tell us what you think.
You made him cry.
I know. I am. Do you know what? I'm reading some comments as well, and I've not. Do you know what? I am. Am I made up? Yes. Wow. So you talk about this idea of autumn. Well, I'm not. I'm going to stick to things that I know. That smell.
You get the plum aromas coming.
No, I'm going to say there's a slight marzipan on the nose, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. And do you know what?
Fruitcake.
Yeah, but there's that element of marzipan specific. And
Does some alcohol get into your eye there, Paul?
Sorry?
Does some alcohol get into your eye?
Well, that's me crying of joy. Stop it now. I am genuinely. Honestly, you maybe don't believe this. Like I'm like, do you know what? Because
he's already dead inside.
He's
already dead inside.
The conversation with Ella was very interesting because I know that you wanted specifically for the audience, you wanted for them to have this, and you know what, you made it. But there's the integrity you have, David. That you guys came on board and said, you know what, it's maybe just not ready. We're just going to wait.
It's
We're just going to wait.
A little shy.
Going to wait. And I thought that was really, to me, I thought, do you know what? When Ella said to me, I was like, I respect that. That's important. And I also respect the fact that she said that everyone who was involved in the tasting tonight, everyone who got a pack, will also get a measure of this when it does release. Yeah. And I thought that has to be commended. Really do appreciate that, because do you know what? We've seen how you manipulate barrels. So we've seen that. We've seen how you manipulate the liquid with the barrels. We've seen that new make spirit that's coming through. Yeah, that initial smell that I get is just fantastic. It opens up a lot of fruit. There's a lot of stewed fruit in there, which I get. And do you know what? I'm thinking for a young whiskey, I'm not expecting that to be as strong. I'm not expecting it to be as sweet, because what it's not high-end nail polish. It's not high-end.
No, those light esters they're out of there.
Yeah, gone. What is that all about? All also cask has allowed you to soften it but give a spiciness. So that spice comes straight onto the nose.
A little bit of dryness on the palate too, Paul.
I don't want to taste it yet. I don't want to taste it.
Turn it into you.
Really don't. Okay. So one thing I talk about, and I know that the guys from our club will know this, but I do talk about the way in which it interacts with my mouth and whether or not it plays with my tongue or it bounces in and into the top of my mouth, into the roof of my mouth. And this has that initial moment on the very front of my tongue, but it moves very quickly. So it's gone. It's very quick, and it's actually sticking to the top of my mouth. And that's interesting because you don't normally expect that. And again, with a young liquid, I don't expect that. I expect the young liquid to do this. Yeah, I mean, I don't expect it to grab on very quickly and to move to the top of the mouth. I want to let it go down because I want to know how it feels. Okay, so there's the alcohol specific, catching the back of the mouth.
Yeah.
It's wrapping itself around the corners of my tongue.
Absolutely, yeah, right on the fringes.
It's really nice. And that's a very well-rounded whiskey at this point. Not complete because it's still moving like quickly, but it's now coming back to the front of my mouth.
It does.
Yeah, but the taste is great. So we're getting really, that we've gone from what on the nose, the marzipan and the stewedness to then a kind of orchard fruit on the palate. This is really, really good. Oh my Lord. Thank you genuinely, David. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone, when they get this, experiences what I've just experienced. Obviously, if you've never had the first one out of a first cask or whatever, I mean, I don't know what to say, but I'm just genuinely in shock. And Ella just said something that's alive. It is alive. It moves within the mouth. There's a lot of whiskey, and David, there's a lot of whiskey which is old whiskey, and maybe even what we class as being hard to get whiskey. Maybe that 25-year-old, maybe up to that 30-year-old, which dies its death on the tongue, and it doesn't get to the back of the throat, and it doesn't manipulate your senses. This has got that going just now. So yeah, I hope I've been very honest with it. That's the first time I've tasted it. Cracked it open there. That's my opinion. I hope that's what it is. It's nothing more, nothing less.
But I think the foundations there are outstanding, and I see, like, there's a question there. Where do we, what sort of age statement do we reach for? Actually, that journey is unknown. Now, what we will have is we'll have an aging strategy so that we'll be retaining, but ultimately it's an unknown journey. And as we progress and as it ages and it starts to mellow and all of those things, I think that's just going to be, that's a voyage that I'm really looking forward to.
This is really good. This is really good. But it's good because it's, do you know what? And I only want to focus on Jarlath because I know he's in there, but Jarlath gave me a taste of something the other day, and it was just, this isn't ready. This is just something we're going to taste. Oh, okay, that's great. And I told him where I thought it stood, in terms of what its competitor is at this level. This is really interesting. I can hand on heart. We've tasted a lot of new spirits coming out of Ireland just now. Oh, this will be hard to beat at this age, David. Okay. It'll be hard to beat, and I hope that genuinely people do get to experience this. And now I have heard, and we do have some guys who are pulling out the stops this week, and they're putting out stuff which they haven't released yet. We've got Waterford who have just released those whiskies, but they're bringing to the table their next release of whiskies. We've got Dingle doing stuff, and et cetera, et cetera. People doing things. I think for a 4-year-old whiskey, this will be a hard one to top. This will be a hard one to top.
And it's funny. I'm just like Sebastian. It has asked, why did we choose Oloroso? I come back to the building blocks, right? So we've constantly look at building blocks as to what fits and what's the value add and is it bringing something to the table. So ultimately for Sebastian, we did a lot of blending. So in the context of the development of the distillate with different finishing fortified wines and ultimately the compatibility between that distillate and Oloroso to enhance the fruity natures of it. Like you mentioned orchard fruits there earlier on, Paul. The Oloroso brings in a little bit of plum, and it brings in some other stuff that just absolutely complemented it all the way. I think it would be lost if we went down and we kind of put it in. We would never do it. Pick a Chardonnay. It just wouldn't fit with the Chardonnay. It just wouldn't fit with the Chardonnay.
Do you know, I think to answer the question as well, first of all, that what I get from the Oloroso, what I get from Sherry Cask, but all the Oloroso is quite specific. It dumbs down that element of it being really, that those high end taste that you just don't want to have in your mouth. And actually even in the nose you don't necessarily want to have. But the more I'm tasting this, I'm reflecting, and I have to reflect back on your distillates. I have to reflect back on the creaminess here. There's a level of creaminess and a level of that, and that cereal note is still there on that, which is that's just lovely. It's just the right type of creaminess that adds to that. Yeah, I am a fan. Now I will be excited to purchase a little bottle of this exactly when it comes out. Maybe I'll have my own number. I don't know. They've got a number, do they? Because I'll take a number. Absolutely. Business, David. I am dumbfounded and nearly speechless. I know that someone wrote that in there about genuinely the ability to do this. And thank you so much. Absolutely. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, delighted with the feedback, but more importantly, absolutely enjoying, the engagement with everybody that's there, that are listening to us just, chat about stuff. They haven't had the ability to be able to share what we've done in terms of the single malt. That will come to pass for sure. But as I said, just not quite there. And I think, another 6 to 8 weeks. And yeah, I'd be really delighted with it at that point.
I know you've given me, I'm going to say this, but the sample that I have here it comes in at 59%. I'm assuming. What is the percent? What are you looking at? Are you going to try and take this down to in around 46%? Is that the percentage?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I 40% just doesn't cut the mustard, right?
Yeah.
But I think we'll just put those to one side. But for us, our sweet spot has just been Amarone, the Marsala. We're in and around that where, but if we go any lower than 45 or 45%, it may start to get a little bit oily. We may start to see a little bit of flock, and obviously we don't want to chill filter this whiskey. So if we can keep the ABV where there's no haze in it, I think that's where we want to be, because it's full of flavor. It's got loads of substance. It's got great character. And I think if you start to mess with it on the back of trying to lower an ABV, I think you'll just destroy it.
Yeah. Do you know what? It sits right at this point in time. This is sitting right for me. I know that it cannot be finished. It is not the finished article. But that being said, what it stands up against and what it has to stand up against is remarkable. So that's very impressive. I do like to say that, and I can keep saying that because I have been highly critical, and Jonathan and Phil and all these people will tell you how highly critical I would be of new whiskies and what is expected. I.e., don't release it until it's good enough to release, and have pride in your liquid. Don't think you have to make a buck, because the bucks will come. They'll just come at a later stage. They might just not happen tomorrow. So I think that this is very honest, and I like the fact that you're going to keep it till it's just right, just till it's the point. I think I when I read the story of Connacht, when I heard that the guys who are involved and this idea of bringing whiskey back, this is the parallel between what you have done here and what we're doing here with the festival is very similar. You're bringing back whiskey that hasn't been produced, and there's been no whiskey production in Mount Mayo for over 100 years. That you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That you're bringing heritage back. You're not stealing names. You're not like picking in trophies or whatever it is. You're doing it yourself. You're working hard at it, and the parallels there about this festival is very important. That it's about bringing something back to an area, bringing a sense of a sense of belonging. The whiskey belongs in Mayo. There was history there for it. Hopefully it brings a more employment and opportunity for people in the area as well. But it's brings, again, even though everyone goes to Mayo for holidays, there's more tourism. There's more. It's a win-win for the area. It's a win-win. It's a win-win for yourselves, I would assume. Do you know what I mean? Very small town, but it's a win-win in terms of putting it on the map, everyone knowing about it. I feel this resonates with me right now.
Like one of the things that we're very conscious of is, it's like that. There's a heritage here that everybody talks about the Renaissance of Irish whiskey. We're the first of the new generation coming through, that is using Mayo. That's our base. That's our home. Our provenance is being created by that. There's a huge Mayo diaspora. Huge.
Yes.
Ohio is a hotbed of people that moved in the 50s over to the States. You've Birmingham, you've Manchester, you've Mayo everywhere. And what we want, so we want to have something where those people can be proud of this also and call it a little bit of home. So we're conscious of carrying that kind of torch or baton or whatever you want to call it, so that it's going to be reflective of home for a lot of people that just don't live in Mayo. So we want them to be proud of it. Ultimately, if we're not proud of it, then how can we be passionate for it at the end of the day, Paul? And that's critical. Right. That's critical to everything as well, No,
you're right. And I'm sure the Nigel McHale there, the Ballina man.
Good man, Nigel.
I think it was critical for me for this festival when we decided to turn it online, David. When we decided to turn it online, that we made it a world event. That we didn't just say it's online and it's only for people in Belfast or it's only people from Northern Ireland. No, consciously I was like, if we're going to do it, it has to be to the world, because everyone and their granny, are from Ireland, are spread around the world.
All over the world, yeah.
And the Irish whiskey drinkers are not confined to one island. We know this, and they're all over the world. And it's been great actually getting product out. I maybe should point this out, that we sent product to Ohio, no bar, and they got it within the space of a couple of hours. Within less than 2 days. So we got the stuff out there because we knew that we wanted people, to have this product. And I'm just grateful we could put it out there. I'm glad that we had the right distribution to do it, and it was done. It was done authentically with everyone. But I'm just glad we could get the message out there. I hope that people come back and visit and revisit this conversation. I really do. I think that they'll when they get the chance to sample this themselves, they'll come back on and they'll have that. But you should really hold your head up high. I think an inspiration as a founder, as someone who's working hard at it. I tend to find that people so much different working and conversing with someone like yourself, completely different, to someone who has a passion, who has what's that word? You have you have a stake in it. You have a real stake, and you have a real, if you don't work at it and you don't succeed at it, it will not succeed. You have
what
that.
I would say, Paul, is that it's like, okay, so you and I are chatting tonight, but it's a Friday night and Ella is online and Grania is online.
Yeah.
So we are all committed as a collective.
Exactly.
We're hugely emotionally connected to the business and what we're trying to do, and we are wearing a jersey, and we're very reflective of that. Yeah. We feel very responsible by it, and ultimately, so that you see the three of us here, the distillers are slogging it out each and every day to make sure that everything is done properly. So you're talking to me, but everybody connected to the business is all in.
And you can see that. That's reflective. That is reflective. But I think what I was meaning is a complete comparable. And what I'm going to say is a complete comparable to people and other distilleries who do not have the passion and the people there to emulate that. The stakeholdingness, the this belongs to me, and these people I work with, they are a family. They are working hard for the business. They're working hard for the production of the whiskey. When we look at big companies, and we don't need to name names because we know who they are, but when we look at big companies who only now have sales representatives who talk to you just to sell the product, it's lost that initial message because their distillery's 300 years old or whatever it is. That's lost. And actually, we talk about market share. Market share is really interesting. We've got two big boys who really have market share on certain parts of in certain parts of Irish whiskey, and then we have everyone else vying for share. And I think actually it's everyone else that will start to really eat in at those companies, because actually what we're getting, and I think what everyone in this chat room is getting, and there's no doubt everyone hearing these stories from distilleries and distillers and people who own the distilleries initially, is this passion, is this the creativity, it's the love of the liquid, love of the business, and for it to succeed, that we're going to buy into that more than listening to a sales representative just talking about a brand which really hasn't really changed very much because they believe that they own a certain percentage of the marketplace. So you're winning on all fronts at this point. You're certainly winning with me, and I do mean that because I appreciate that, and that's me. Whether or not this is the festival that I run or not, the festival doesn't belong to me. I always say this: the Belfast Whisky Week is about Belfast, and hopefully Belfast at some point really take it to the heart and understand it and grasp it, right? but the festival just needs to exist. So I mean, I'm very objective, and I'm very honest when I talk about product. So what you've got from me is very honest. If it was bad tonight, if any of that was bad tonight, you would have got an honest opinion. That's just the truth.
Well, Paul, you wouldn't have got it because I wouldn't have sent it.
Sensible answer. That's the best answer, because see, if you keep on saying that's the truth. That's what matters. That is what matters. And Ella, that'd be very kind if you came next year. We'd really appreciate that. We really would. Obviously, we'd love you up here, up to Belfast. We'd appreciate that.
Oh, we'll definitely.
Damien makes a point. Look, integrity is what is needed, 100%. So, if there's any questions, I think we can try and wrap it up. If there's any questions specific from the audience who want to get a question out there, ask it just now into the chat. Very kind, El. But listen, I've really appreciated tonight, David. I'll be honest.
Absolutely enjoyed it.
That's a best year today.
Love the feedback. No, yeah.
Good. And Gary, thanks for coming on, especially late at night on a Friday, as we say. You know what I mean? But
what was your favorite, Paul, out of the 6 of them? The first 6.
Say again.
What was your favorite?
So if I'm going to be very honest about my favorite,
count the last one. You can't count the last one. This is what everyone.
I wasn't going to count the last one because that's not very fair on everyone else, right? You know what I mean? So they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't get that. That was a favorite." Okay, well, I'll have to say sorry, and I couldn't do that one either. I can't say the 66% because it was absolutely brilliant. But I do like, if I'm going to be honest, your double distilled is winning over the triple distilled for me at the moment.
Well, lighter style. It's lighter style, and I think back to Jarlath's point. I think if you give it 3 or 4 years and we start to affect it with a cask, you're just going to see something completely different.
Yeah. No, you're quite right. I've got a question here from. You said not many challenges to Mayo.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. No, I mean where we are, we're lucky. Okay, we're far removed from mainstream, so logistics, and getting material to Ballina is But we've ironed out all of those kinks. Our planning horizons are such that we know when we have to order and that. I would say. Oftentimes there aren't too many distilleries here, so positive or negative. So we've had to train our own distillers, but they're all local to Ballina. So the notion of them being poached, shall we say, is something where it would be a big upheaval for them to go to another distillery. So that's a positive and a negative in a way. So we've a very strong team that have been bought in since day one, and we've ironed out the kinks. So we're okay. It's like everywhere we have peaks and troughs in terms of activity. We're headless chickens at times, and then there's other things to be doing. I think probably the biggest challenge is on the tourism side because we're very far away from kind of mainstream stuff. So Grania works very hard on that particular front, but just not a lot of people come to Mayo for whiskey. But if
there are tourists that go to Mayo. I mean, people go all the way to Mayo.
Yeah, it's like, so we're on the Greenway and that, but even then, North Mayo wouldn't be a hotbed. You're coming to Sligo down to Galway, and maybe over to Westport. So that's probably the one thing. But with the advent of the Irish American guys, with Neffin, with Lochgill, with the Shed, having visitor centres, I think we'll start to create a destination on the west of Ireland for people to come to see distilleries. But that would be the biggest challenge that I have specific to the business at the moment.
No, fair enough. That's very honest, David. What I want to do as well, I want to do a whiskey glass swap. I would like to for you to have a whiskey week box of glasses, and I would like a box of Connacht glasses because glass from the last shot that you had, and it was like it's like a pattern going up the glass. Let me see it again. Yeah, I want that. I want that. You can have this one.
That's a trade.
Yeah, that's a trade. I'll send a box down. I'll send a box down with these on it. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, so there you go.
My pleasure.
Absolutely brilliant. Listen, generally, thank you very much. I'm going to ask our admins to start to close it down just now. But I've really appreciated it. I really have.
I think we all enjoyed the evening.
I hope you've got.
It went on a little bit longer than we probably originally imagined, but it's great conversation, great banter. So thoroughly enjoyable.
Good.
Time
And
for having fun.
there's a couple of people in here. I know Jamie's making some funny jokes. He wants to go to the local nightclub, but that's not going to happen tonight. Happened every night last time. Every night last time. But yeah, it's been great to see people from around the world, as I say, jumping in on this conversation. And different time zones make it a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
But I still think that the good thing about this, hopefully we can, people can revisit this stuff, and hopefully they can have a tune in their own time. There's been a lot of people who have purchased the packs. But I think everyone who's purchased packs has been on here tonight. We see the attendee list. The attendee list has been full. In fact, we've had people who definitely don't have packs who have been in here tonight. So that's been really good. I really like the fact that we have people who are in the festival who just don't have alcohol in front of them, and they want to listen to this and they want to talk about it.
Cool. And I'd love to see what the outcome of the surveys that you did in terms of general feedback.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Because
I think there was a whole thing, David, which I really wanted to do, which is for the actual festival itself. We wanted for the physical festival, we wanted to have and we'd been sponsored. We had a sponsor to take on a, what do you call it? Like a black tie dinner for the
dinner,
for the industry only. And it wasn't to talk about whiskies, to be frank. It was to talk about the people. The people behind the whiskies, people who are working it hard. So there's all your great brand ambassadors and your brand ambassadors, then your distillers and your master blenders and your everyone who's involved in the distillery from getting the product right the way out to the consumer, making it, whatever it is, coopers, whatever it is. And we wanted to have that, and it would have been great to have that. So we wanted our own awards ceremony, and I thought I didn't know how to really bring it into this, because I thought it might be a wee bit too much work. It's been a lot of work already. It's just how much more work can one put into it.
Yeah.
I think what these guys have done today, I didn't realise that the admins had started to do it, but obviously they started to score the whiskies. I think it'll be interesting if we compile it correctly. It'd be nice to see at the very end what people's perceptions were of different whiskies throughout the week and where they sit. But yes, you'll have that information. I also think it'll be nice for us to, we're very honest grouping when we do it ourselves, to literally say these are our top 5 whiskies of the year. And these are the bottom 5 whiskies of the year that just haven't made the cut. You know what I mean? And I hope it does you good. I generally do.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Absolutely enjoyed it.
Super. Well, listen, thank you very much. Robert, I'll let you start to take this down. Actually, Robert, do you know what you could do? Put on a couple of singers, and if people will still want to chat about it, then shut it down after a couple of songs. Is that okay? We'll put a wee bit. Yeah?
Perfect. So, yeah, thanks, everybody. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you. Cheers, Gary. Thank you very much, David. Thank you.